Today I am with a good friend of mine, Phi Auxier, who is the pastor at Crestview Bible Church in Hutchinson, Kansas. And about 2.5, 3 years ago, I had the privilege of walking alongside Phil and his church and missions leadership team as they focused and retooled their missions vision. And I really want to thank you, Phil, for taking some time today to be with us.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Yeah, it's good. So maybe for the sake of our viewing audience, what was going on at Crestview that made you realize a need for coaching? You know, what were the circumstances that were at play that made you say, hey, we really need to rethink how we're doing missions as a local church?
Right, I think there's 2 or 3 things that came to mind. One is we just devoted basically all our energy to supporting missionaries. So that's great. I mean, we love those frontline workers that are working to advance the gospel around the world. I mean, we really appreciate our partners. I mean, they're really an extension of our church's ministry. But that was really the totality of what our missions vision was. We were supporting missionaries. We might take a trip, but that didn't have any focus. It was just kind of a random trip. Oh, well, we could go here and give everybody a good missions experience. And so it was really the lack of focus or the lack of direction that we felt like something needed to change. And then there was the fact that we just supported missionaries. And then in our church in particular, we have a lot of children at that time under the age of 5, and we were thinking, what are we going to be imparting to this next generation when it comes to missions? So it really felt like we have to do something to be effective for the long-term, future of the nations. But the call that God's put on us to advance the gospel, I mean, we have to do something about that. We can't just continue to do things the way we're doing them.
So would it be fair to say that there was maybe some divine discontent, and not to minimize the grace of God that got you to that place and all the history you had, but there was a longing to see God do more through your church when it came to reaching the world?
Yeah. It's not like our international partners were scoundrels or anything. I mean, we wanted our people engaged, which... Yes, there is a level of engagement when they give to our budget, and that supports missionaries around the world.
Right.
That's a great level of engagement, an important level of engagement for our partners. But we just felt like there's got to be more that God's calling us to than just that as a church.
Right.
So that was really the rub.
Yeah, it amazes me. I travel all around the country, and I hear that same story.
Yeah.
And to me, it's evidence that the Holy Spirit really is doing a work in His church.
Yeah.
There's a growing number of churches, just like yours, who don't just want to support. Not that there's anything wrong with supporting, that's a part of it.
Right.
But they want to actively engage the gifts and the talents and passions of their people.
Right.
So I see that happening. It's a beautiful thing. Maybe you could share a little bit about what the process was actually like.
Yeah. So I thought about that on one level. I think you mean the actual coaching process? Yeah. So once we got into that, and we saw that this was going to be a good fit for us, and all along the way we were getting confirmation to that effect. I would describe it in 2 ways. One is, it's kind of like an airplane ride where you're gathering together, and then you come up to the ticket counter and there's this person that's checking in with you. That's kind of what Matthew was doing. He was checking in with us. Hey, where are we at? Do you have all your documents? What do you think about those documents? What's the destination you want to go to with these documents? And that's really what our time with Matthew was. He's just asking us questions. What is the Bible? What do you guys think the Bible's teaching? What are your values? That was a lot of work. Just like if you're traveling somewhere, it's a lot of work to gather all that together. And then it's just kind of like journeying around the world. You're kind of going up in the air for a while and working on some stuff, and then landing back, and there's another check-in, and then we're just continuing until we finally reached a final destination where we were going to launch a new vision. And so all along that journey, but in deeper ways, the practical, that airplane ride metaphor or simile just kind of really stood out to me. But just really it's finding out who we are as a church. What are we passionate for? How do we envision God accomplishing the Great Commission through us? And then what does that mean? And Matthew's just drawing that out of us, and then, just lending expertise as we need it. I would say that I think the thing that I most appreciated was just the relationship through the journey with Matthew. So, yes, a lot of the work was on us to figure out where we wanted to go, but we always knew we could lean into him. We always knew we had someone with us that we could call, and that's what makes the coaching process valuable. I don't think there's anything magic about what we found, most everybody knows the scriptures teach certain things, and maybe even churches could come at these values on their own, but having the ability to lean in with some expertise and, well, what about this? Have you thought about this? I mean, those are the helpful moments that really God used to clarify for us a direction.
So, keying off of that, maybe you could talk about some of the outcomes of the process.
Yeah.
Like, how did the process impact the way you're doing missions today?
Right. So, we still continue to support some international partners, and that's kind of what that emerged for us. So, you might have the idea that if we do missions coaching, then everything that we do is going to be completely obliterated. We're going to have a new direction. Well, maybe God might choose to work it that way, but in our case, God chose to just show that what we were doing in some respects was good, but there was maybe some other things we could do that could really give us a great... Remember, our goals were to focus more, to have more engagement, pass on something to that future generation, and do something more than supporting our missionaries. That's where we were discontent. So the outcomes of that were, we do have a clear focus. I mean, people in our church, actually, a week ago Sunday, we asked a 5-year-old in our church, we showed them the emblem of the missions committee, which in our case is a water droplet with waves coming out of it. And we said, what does this emblem mean to you? This is a 5-year-old's answer. And his answer was, oh, well, that's the missions direction kind of the church, of how we're to take the gospel to all people. So a 5-year-old gets it now.
Yeah, that's good.
So just the connectedness and the focus that process gave us. And then we did emerge with some strategic focus areas, and so working with partners now and connecting that, and still continuing to figure out how we can connect better and engage more people. We've done some things with some partners that have connected at some points, like 60 to 70% of our congregation are engaged in some work we're doing with partners. So it's really amazing when you think that we went from just supporting missionaries to now having a clear focus and lots of people being able to communicate exactly what we're about, being able to articulate what those focus areas are, engaging in them, and now even that next generation is already capturing that vision and being able to be a part of that. That's kind of, those are some outcomes that directly emerge out of what we were unsettled about.
Yeah, that's powerful. I think it was Ralph Winters, not sure it was him exactly, but it definitely came out of the U.S. Center for World Missions. He said you can't blame people for being involved in so many trivial things when they have no access to truly explosive information about the Great Commission. Yeah. And his philosophy was, the church often isn't involved in missions not because they don't want to be. There's just no clear vision, or there's no clear opportunities to touch the work. And as you describe what happened, I think you had a clarifying vision, and then you had these opportunities for kids to engage and seniors to engage and everyone in between.
Right. I think that is the case, so, and we continue to think about ways that we can engage. So we have a cross-section of our community might not be on Twitter, but we still have ways that they can connect. We have young children that, maybe can't go to the front lines and be a part of a short-term experience, but we're finding ways to involve them even at this moment. So, it's kind of an amazing thing, and we still continue to kind of marvel at that and wonder, how did that happen? And it really comes back to this journey of this process that we had where we set apart time. So, putting on my theological hat for a second, in the book of Acts, we move over years in the span of a verse. So we think Paul gets saved and he immediately goes and ministers to the Gentiles, and that's not the case. We know from Galatians that he was in Arabia, and there was clarification of the vision where the Lord said to him, I'm going to teach you the gospel, here we go. And so in one verse, there's a span here of time. A lot of times in church life, we get real unsettled, when we have to take any time to consider vision.
Right.
So we're not doing anything. We're just thinking about vision. This is such a waste of time. Well, it can be a good thing to just take some time and settle and plot and think, okay, well, God, what have you called us to? Exactly. What kind of... what are the unique ways that you've suited us as a local church to do the Great Commission? It's unique for all of us. So just taking time to consider that is a profound moment of Psalm 46:10. Be still and know that I'm God. I will be exalted among the nations. I will be exalted in the earth. when we take time to pause and listen to God's heart, you know, what do you want? Where do you want us to go? What do you want us to do? He's going to answer that, and it's going to be a plan of the nations, you know,
Right.
of his fame just crashing on distant shores. It's, you know, one of the refrains that we use a lot in our missions vision. So it's the waves of grace crashing on those distant shores. You know, it's God doing something, and it's because we took just a short section of our life in the span of eternity. You know, we took 6 months to consider, God, what's your word say? What's your word dictate for how we do this? And now it's just reverberating, grace upon grace, wave upon wave, just crashing. And God's using us, and we just, wow, this is amazing that we get to be a part of this. That's what that process was. That's what the journey is. I mean, just fleshing that out.
You mentioned Psalm 46:10. That there's a kind of a axiom that we use a lot. You probably hear me say it in the midst of the process, and that is that knowing comes before doing and shapes doing.
Yeah.
And churches want open package, mixed ingredients, instantaneous results. But the truth is, that's why they have the shotgun approach to missions.
Right, yeah.
They've never gone through a process of knowing
Yeah.
the heart of God, our role in God's mission, and then letting their actions flow out of that understanding is really critical. So let's close with this. Phil, talk to the missions pastor, the missions leader, the church leader. Kind of a, you know, if this is your church, you ought to consider missions coaching.
Yeah, I think the real, the big ones that probably emerge, you know, would you like to see a greater focus around your missions vision? And okay, let's maybe say you're a missions pastor, because I've talked to some of those at different conferences. Most of those guys are just tired of being the drum beater for the Great Commission. I mean, am I overestimating that?
No, exactly.
Most of them have labored hard. They've, in many cases, they served on the field. They've been brought into a local church to help people get this vision, and they are weary from beating the drum, and they want more people to give it.
Yeah.
I think this process is for them. I think there's people that, I think there's a lot of churches that want, Matthew and I were talking about this earlier in the day, you know, the percentage of missionaries that are called under the age of 10, where God begins to settle in their hearts and put in them a heart and a passion for the nations. So what are you doing to nurture that next generation for the sake of God's glory among the nations? I mean, it's a huge impact. I mean, what would happen if you took a strategic focus and teased that out amongst, you know, your children ministries or your youth ministries? What would be the impact of that for eternity, for God's glory among the nations? What would that look like? These are things that I think most churches just, this is like deep below the neck kind of, they will fight for these things.
Yeah.
So this is why you need the process, so that you can say, God, we might not know like what color carpet we need to have, or we might not know whether or not we should build a gym. We know you've called us to go and make disciples of all nations. And how have you suited us as a local church to do that? And then, you know, what does that mean? That's what this process is about, so that you can take that and impact other generations, so that you can have more engagement in that, so you can have a more clarified focus, so that you can have some direction, and it's not so aimless, and it's not just, oh, well, we'll give them $50 and $50 here. No, you'll know this money has to be used for this. This is what God's called us to. There's a compelling passion for that emerges out of this process that I would just recommend to you. So those are some applications, I think, in church life.
Hey, brother, thank you for your time today. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome. Glad to do it. Thanks.